A $2.3 million war on gangs bill earned the endorsement from a critical group of lawmakers this week, claiming Colorado could easily follow California's bad example. House Majority Leader Chris Paulson says his multifaceted bill could help defuse gangs. It proposes to beef up the ranks of state drug agents and toughen sentences for gang-related crimes. While the bill passed the committee handily, there still are some critics out there.
You put 25 men on the street that, okay, it's there. They getting big fat paychecks, driving these big beautiful cars. But you put a Reverend Leon Kelly, and I guarantee you he could do more work than one day than they could do in a whole year.
And it won't even cost no $2 million.
It won't cost nothing. Okay, 50.
We're not even getting paid now.
Exactly.
At issue this week, Colorado gangs. Those in the know say gangs are not just a metro problem anymore, and this week the state got involved. House Bill 1335 would fund a war on gangs to the tune of $2.3 million. It won committee approval this week with the help of police chiefs from outside Metro Denver. Last summer, Delonte Carolina, a Northeast Denver high school student, was killed in a drive-by shooting. He was one of 3 boys killed recently during the war between the Crips and the Bloods.
Hands on top! Hands on top of the car!
While the cocaine derivative crack is central to many gang members' economic survival, it's the colors they wear that gang members are willing to fight and die for.
They call themselves Cuz, which is black slang for cousin. You'll see the graffiti with Cuz, C-U-Z-Z, or just C-U-Z. And their favorite phrase is, "What's up, Cuz?" Now that phrase can start a war.
It's this destructive value system concentrated in Northeast Denver that has forced the Denver Police Department to assign these 40 officers to specialize in gang violence. So far, they've identified close to 1,000 gang members. But their efforts are not enough. That's what House Majority Leader Chris Paulson and law enforcement officials have convinced at least one group of lawmakers. His solution, a $2.3 million war on gangs bill.
And the primary thrust of this bill is to get a handle on the gang problem early on in its infancy, if you will, in this state, and to try and interdict the major economic support of gang activity, which is trafficking in drugs and narcotics.
Paulson says his bill will allow Colorado to get a handle on the gang problem before it gets out of hand as it has in California. One Denver police chief says Denver's gang problem is spreading, that chiefs from surrounding counties have seen early signs.
So I think it's incumbent upon us to do something with a bill like this that will allow us to attack it far beyond just a couple of local jurisdictions.
Drug trafficking and gang activity is not limited to the metro area. We've learned through the federal parolee that these gangs are operating through the Colorado Springs and the Denver area. The informants and the people who are arrested and have talked to us have confirmed this. We're starting to make a dent in this operation, but we need help, and the CBI needs help.
Paulson's bill authorizes the Colorado Bureau of Investigations to hire additional agents to track drug trafficking by gangs. The bill also proposes to discourage violence by toughening sentences for the use of an automatic weapon during a crime and gang graffiti. The only part of the bill that stirred up some heated questioning is the provision that would segregate gang members in state prisons to discourage gang recruiting.
Whether it's a gang that the guy belonged to or whether it's an individual troublemaker, that he has the right to segregate either by putting him in with a non-gang member or doing something else. I don't think, in other words, I think that authority already exists with any department, with the Department of Institutions or any sheriff that runs a county jail.
You know, when you talk about gang, we're not talking about the fact that you know, certain ethnic groups polarize and define their turf in a given area. We're talking about people who are involved in criminal activity, trying to bring drugs in, trying to force others to do certain kinds of criminal activities that I think makes and that's where I think the bill is very helpful in saying, if you do that, we're going to take measures above and beyond what we ordinarily would do to segregate this, and the state law backs that up.
The Crips, they want to be better than the Bloods, and the Bloods want to be better than the Crips.
So they fight.
So they fight and see who's going, you know,
who stand up to
like the tallest.
Over at the Open Door Youth Gang Ministries, headed by the Reverend Leon Kelly, Former gang members joined Kelly in turning thumbs down on the bill. They were asked to respond to specific provisions. Number one, gang graffiti would carry a mandatory 1-year jail term for a second offense.
That's part of combating the problem. You shouldn't give them no year or 2 or 3 years in jail because it ain't gonna get cleaned up. All that's gonna happen is that somebody gonna say, "Oh, my homeboy got locked up for spraying on." All right, we're gonna sneak around tonight and we're gonna spray up everything.
And might go to the police station.
You think about it, nobody has really been caught doing writing graffiti anyway.
In the daytime,
people's gonna have to stop underestimating, the fellas. You're not gonna see nobody in the broad daylight go out and just hit up.
It could be the mayor's house. You don't care. You going down there, you gonna symbolize, okay, this is the hood that we want. We gonna write on everything. We don't care if it's got gold or whatnot. We gonna write everything that our name on it. So what? Who house is it? Why?
Number two, adult and juvenile jails would be authorized to segregate gang members to stop recruiting in prisons.
It's just like putting an alligator over here in this one corner and putting a crocodile right here and just waiting to see who's the best. But yet it's still holding them off from each other. You know what I'm saying?
Number three, sentences would be increased to 5 years if a crime is committed with an automatic weapon.
I see that as adding on to the problem. I see that as adding on because they're only looking at it as one way. Well, if we can lock them down, that's not, and that ain't how it is. That's not reality. If you come to reality, you got to work with something to change it.
Number four, adding an undetermined number of drug enforcement agents to the Colorado Bureau of Investigations. And finally, the allocation of $2.3 million state dollars to fight gang violence.
You put 25 men on the street that, okay, it's there. They getting big fat paychecks, we're driving these big beautiful cars. But you put a Reverend Leon Kelly and I guarantee you he could do more work than one day than they could do in a whole year.
And it won't even cost no $2 million.
It won't cost nothing. Okay, 50.
We're not even getting paid now.
Exactly.
Joining us in the studio, Sergeant David Dawkins, Denver Police Department. He is the Denver coordinator for the gang's intelligence. And Reverend Leon Kelly, he deals hands-on with many gang members through his Open Door Youth Gang Ministries. We'll start with you, Reverend Kelly. You and your former gang members that we saw in the piece disagree with many components of that bill. Why didn't you show up to testify at the committee? You were a definite missing element there.
Well, I was at the point had other commitments in which I was dealing with some of the kids by being in some of the schools here, so I wasn't able to make it. And again, I didn't even know about it until I think it was you that told me about it. So.
Do you feel like your testimony would have made a difference?
I think that it maybe would have had a different perspective on it because certainly the police have to deal with it from the street level from one side of it, and I deal with it too from another side of it. So I think that it could have had some kind of impact.
When we were talking off camera before down at the Open Door Youth Ministries, you shot some numbers at me that you think you have impacted 200 of these gang members. 200, if we're talking about close to 1,000, that's a big chunk. That's a fifth of the gang members out there. With that kind of an impact, why don't you think you were involved in this process?
Well, I guess you would need to ask the city and the state about that. I don't know. My thing is that we've had dialogues before, and seeing the seriousness of this problem and the growth of it, and opposed to me trying to reason out as to why we're not being more involved in the states or the city involvement. I don't have the time for that, and so that's one of the reasons I feel that with the problem. I know that we have a close working relationship with the police, those who are out there on the streets, dealing with it because they know the seriousness of it, and being able to network together. If we could do that, quite naturally, it would seem to me that the city and the state should be more than willing to endorse, what we're doing.
Sergeant Dawkins, you're the gang expert. Reverend Kelly's the street liaison. Yet you support the bill. Why?
Well, I think we have to learn some lessons from California. Let's not do too little too late. And we need to attack the problem now, and we need to attack it with strong legislation. And there are provisions in the bill. Some seem a little tough, maybe the graffiti sentencing, but we need to go after this problem with statewide support, because it is a statewide problem, and we need to go at it with teeth, and send a message out to these guys who are dealing in illegal drugs and crime and all that it breeds, that we're not going to tolerate it.
And yet you would agree that Reverend Kelly really could have a valuable place in the process if the state were to get him involved.
I believe he's had an impact. I've seen the impact he's made with some of the gang members who now are counseling with Reverend Kelly. So I know he has an impact on kids who are gang members, and he has impact on wannabes as a role model.
Wannabes being not hardcore gang people, but the periphery?
Yeah, the kids who may have older brothers, know about gangs, and are thinking about getting into gangs, kids at risk.
And those are the folks that you're really trying to stop early.
Exactly, stop the recruitment.
You've heard what the youth gang members said in this tape. The bill, the components of that bill are going to make them angry. Do you think that's going to foster more crime? Are you concerned about that as the police department into this that's going to have to be there to arrest these kids?
Well, I think, in fact, I don't think it'll foster more crime. I think it'll send a message out that if you get involved in this type of activity, you're going to jail, you're going to do some time. And it may send a message out to some kids who are thinking about it, getting into crime, that maybe I don't want to get into it. Maybe there are alternatives.
So what's your response to those responses on tape that said it's going to make us even more mad? We're going to go out and spray can the whole hood.
Well, I think it's a lot of bravado. If in fact they were going to do a mandatory year's sentence for a second offense on spraying graffiti, that they would think twice about it.
Reverend Kelly, what is the solution to the gang problem?
Well, I think what we're doing as far as Open Door, is one of these solutions, we feel, by allowing the kids to see a different perspective, a different side of this type of activity, being able to not just deal with the kids, but their background, the families too, not in a way that if you're not a fit parent, a fit mother, then you go to jail or we take your kids, this type of thing, but being able to develop some kind of rapport, some type of relationship. And I should say that Open Door is willing to work along with anybody who's willing to work toward this problem, because they know that I don't condone it, and I'm doing all what we can to try to change it. Just the fact that when some of my fellows was venting some of their frustrations, a lot of that's coming from the things that have been happening already about the increased police presence, and I endorse even that, but yet to come up and intimidate and harass somebody, certainly that's going to cause some type of extra tension. So.
What would you do with $2.3 million?
Ooh, first of all, I'll say thank God, and then we will develop other type of programs that these kids could feel that they have some type of a future at. We would implement educational type programs that they feel that they could be a part of. We would even help the problems even within the home structure. And again, with adding 25 men to the street and paying them $2.something million, as the piece has said, we don't even get any funding as of right now. We're having this much of an impact. One of our components of Open Door is to try to bridge the gap with the community, the fellas, the police. I know Dave has been around for a while, and he has made a lot of friends or contacts, with the fellas, and I try to tell the fellas that Dave has a job. If you break the law, I'm paying him, money to do a job, and so we need that type of relationship, that type of rapport within the communities, and a lot of guys who are gangbangers are not dealing drugs. See, even though the drugs is a big part of it.
That's been a focus of this bill, Sergeant Dawkins. Is that a misconception, that the drugs is the major component?
No, the drugs are definitely, that's the reason we have gangs in Denver, and that seems to be the underlying factor for all this activity, are the drugs, although there are gang members who are not dealing drugs or smoking drugs.
So hopefully this bill and your efforts will help to combat this problem. Thank you both for being with us today.
All right, thank you.